buddy, my friend, uh, Benjamin W. Decker,
Oh, so
BWD.
you're saying my whole. I'll just say JJ. You're saying the whole name, and I'll just say JJ.
No, say my whole name. Say my name.
John Jacob Mubarak.
Woo! All right.
I love your last name. It means celebration. Is that right?
It means blessed.
Blessing. Okay.
Yes, and so they would say Eid Mubarak, right? Like the blessings of the holiday. The blessings of this joyous celebration. And I'm in a joyful celebration because I'm watching so many people join right
Hey,
now.
everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Super glad to have you. And I'm so glad to be here today. So I'll just jump into this brief introduction so we can start this phenomenal conversation. Nushin, hello, from Houston. Welcome, everybody, to Rise Up. This conversation series is intended to really bridge the conversations between modern thought and ancient wisdom, and to be a place for compassion and love and joy and beauty and intelligence to show up. And guess what? It showed up as Benjamin W. Decker today. Ben is really, honestly, a world-renowned meditation teacher. And I can say that in all honesty, world-renowned, a nonpartisan social justice activist committed to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and a best-selling author of multiple books, including Modern Spirituality and Meditations on Christ, and Guide to the Heart of Mindfulness, and Meditation for Beginners, and what am I missing, Ben? Am I missing a book?
Yeah, Daily Mindfulness is in there somewhere too.
Daily Mindfulness. So much.
Hey, Jen. Hey, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael. Hey, Michelle.
Michael Stewart, Michelle, Shelley. Hi, Shelley. Hi, Jen. Everybody, Rebecca. So grateful. Amanda, grateful to have you from Kissimmee, Florida. Well, Kissimmee.
Kissimmee.
I need some Kissimmee. Amanda Kissimmee. I just need Amanda Kissimmee.
Hey, there's Amanda from Kissimmee.
I love it. Hi, Amanda. Well, Ben. Hi, how are you? I mean,
I'm awesome, JJ. I'm in a good place personally. Super grateful for feeling safe and healthy, even in the awareness of so much going on in the world where so many people aren't experiencing safety and health.
Yes. Yes. I really appreciate the way you answered that, because I wanted to say, no, I really want to know, like, with all this that's going on, how are you? And you answered it perfectly.
Thank you. Yeah. And how are you?
I'm doing
thriving,
good.
Thriving.
I'm thriving. You know, when you look, I'll answer it this way. It's been challenging for me on so many levels. But when I pull back and take the broader perspective, life is so good. We are so blessed on so many ways. There's so much good emerging, and it's easy to put our attention on something that isn't
right
in vibrational harmony with that which is emerging. But so when I step back, I am really good and I'm thriving. And I don't mean to say that like I'm thriving in the midst of all this turmoil. But that's really what our intention is as spiritual practitioners, isn't it? To be unmoved by the external circumstance.
Right. It's like anytime we are a spiritual practitioner, what we're really doing is trying to be a pure vessel for divinity, for purity itself, for spirit. And divinity and spirit is the thing that never changes. It's all other things that change. So the more we're tuned into that, the more we are in the eternal now, the eternal perspective. So definitely.
And I'd like to talk about that because there's a balance there, right? Between being in the world and not of it. We want to stay informed. We want to be up to date on what's going on in our world. And yet I found it difficult. I found it challenging to keep the in the world part, and then to keep my eye on the sparrow, so to speak, to keep my eye on God, to keep my eye on what's real and unchanging, as you said.
And in the Bible, they say, keep your eyes single to the glory of God. So it's like that, it's reminiscent of that notion of the third eye, and just like keeping that single pointed focus on like that divine nature, that divine quality, and allowing everything else to sort of like magnetically draw us towards it. And, and you start to find that, certain things don't bother you anymore. And it can sometimes be almost disturbing. It can be almost disturbing that, wow, that used to really bother me a lot and it doesn't anymore. But it's not that we're desensitizing ourselves to dysfunction. Rather, we're sensitizing ourselves to the peace of the eternal present moment, the higher truth, which is what I love about the plant medicine. The plant medicine has like this more universal message, of our connection to all things when we go in, and everyone experiences it differently, but it does tend to have that pattern of the universal recalibration of bringing all things together.
And this is our, I think that singular eye, we see source and oneness with that singular eye, and two
Right.
eyes to see the world.
Right.
And I think as a practice with so much, I was with Reverend Michael yesterday at Agape, and he had a ring on, a really pretty ring, and I said, "Well, that's a beautiful ring, Rev." And he goes, "Oh, there's a story behind it." I said, "Oh, wow, okay, tell me the story." And he said, "Well, I met this years ago, this guy who wanted to make jewelry. He wanted to be a jewelry maker, and he got arrested for like major drug trafficking, like a lot of marijuana, right? Like this was years ago, and he called Rev, and he was in jail, and Rev said, and he was worried about all of the stuff that was going on with his case, and Rev said, "Look, I want you to say the 91st Psalm 3 times a day, 3 times each, 3 times a day, so 9 times a day. I want you to think about what you want to do, like where your life is going, where you want to be." And he had this whole, I don't want you to be concerned about, you can't do anything about the trial and the court. What you can do is handle your energy right now and be looking towards what's emerging, and be firm that you are guided and girded and protected. The 91st Psalm, is so much about protection. And so as it turns out, the guy got to trial, and the prosecuting attorney couldn't show up on that date for the trial. And so the trial was moved again, and he was released on his own recognizance. Then he had to go back to trial. And when he showed up for his second trial, the prosecuting attorney had lost all the writs and everything, and the judge dismissed the case.
Wow.
And now the guy moved to, when he was in jail and talking to Rev about, what was emerging in his life, it was to be a jeweler, to make jewelry in Hawaii. And now he's living there, and that beautiful ring that I said, "Hey, it's a beautiful ring, Rev," that was the story, right? And I think this identifies so perfectly what you were saying, this singular eye, and allowing what's happening in the world of effects to unfold, and watch how the organizing principle brings unexpected ways, right? The how is in our business. And brings something to fruition in unexpected ways.
Yeah, definitely. And as we like really sensitize and tune ourselves up into that, it becomes clearer, and even our sort of like our taste changes. And so some of the things that are in our lives, that we used to find a lot of pleasure in, or joy in, or we would like, it's our favorite dysfunction or whatever, we start to lose our taste for it. We start to maybe smoke a little bit less, or we start to, maybe, find our nutritional changes shift, or how we navigate relationships and stuff like that. So there are little things that, as we do like the practices, and the practices are, of course, like anything that connects the mind, body, and spirit into harmony with one another. So even like Pilates, Pilates isn't considered super spiritual, but for me, I'm in there and I'm like, it is spiritual for me, you know? And when there's something about doing something that's really challenging physically and really showing up for yourself in that challenge and being present for it, where you just know that strength is coming in and determination is coming in. And we need that so badly right now, psychologically. We need that psychological strength. We need to know that we can do hard things, you know. So often we're talking about, oh, be careful about what you're saying because you don't want to offend anybody. Sometimes we're accidentally offending people. Sometimes we're just totally offended by other people. And it's like there's a certain kind of resilience and toughness and strength that we could use in our own, where we actually can handle some challenging stuff. We've got bodies that are resilient. We've got immune systems. You know, there are things that we can handle a certain amount of. You know, and when we proactively cultivate strength, like in a fitness practice, or we proactively cultivate psychological strength, like in therapy or in plant medicine and that kind of thing, you're proactively cultivating that part of your own consciousness that reminds itself of its divine nature, reminds itself that it's strong, reminds itself that it's capable, reminds itself that it's more than really meets the eye. We are more than our comfort zone.
I'm personally, well, so I knew this was going to happen. I just got to say, because we're just talking and, you know, I'm loving it. And there's some things that I wanted to handle in this conversation, but yeah, I love this conversation going around the mind. It's really mind, body, and spirit, right? Is this alignment and how physical exercise brings us to that awareness. It also psychologically helps in so many ways about being present, less reactive. You know, I can see that in my physical practice. And I want to take this conversation in two different directions. The first direction is, it seems like a really nice segue right from here into current events.
Right.
And sort of how to navigate this from multiple perspectives. And the second piece that I really want to cover is your beautiful all of the beautiful work that you've done in your books and what you're up to and what led you there. So maybe we'll do this, you know, a little reverse, because it feels like talking about current events might be a really great segue. And then we could bring in your work and how you, the place you are, your story of germination towards the end of the conversation. So, cool. You know, we were talking a little bit before we got on live about condemnation and this sort of righteousness and what's going on right now. Actually, I haven't listened to the news today, which is really hard for me because I'm a kind of a news junkie, but I've had to make a concerted effort because I just get completely hooked. So I know there's stuff going on around impeachment, around, you know, declaring this activity wrong. I know there's a whole group of people that, you know, are in a different echo chamber than I am, but based on their algorithm. And they're seeing it completely differently. And the question is, healing as a country, healing is within ourselves, and not letting, without being righteous, but righteous indignation. So I see there's about 5 questions in there. Ben, you got one of them you want to pick and go with?
One from the chat, or one about this concept of
from what I was just talking about. Healing, righteous indignation.
So yeah, that was really interesting. You know, the notion of indignation, it's related to dignity. The word indignation, I know, JJ, you love entomology.
Yes.
And so indignation have entomological relationship, has an entomological relationship with dignity. And so the notion of dignity, to do something with dignity, to be dignified, it's directly connected to mindfulness. Dignity is about courtesy. It's about courtesy within your own self. It's about having a high moral certitude and character. And so when we're looking at righteous indignation, it's It's a moment where you're seeing something, and the moral compass inside of you, it experiences a special kind of activation. And so that moral compass inside you is like going off, like the alarm is going off. And it's indignation, because it's the creation of dignity. It's the declaration, it's the demand for dignity within a certain context. And so righteous indignation is to stand on the side of truth, on the side of righteousness, on the side of the higher path, in the presence of disorder or dysfunction or chaos.
And it is an offense to that dignity, right? I think the indignation is some aspect that there's something has offended your virtue, or there's a sense of injustice, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a sense of injustice. And I was sharing with you earlier that quote from Carl Jung, that condemnation does not liberate, condemnation oppresses.
Right.
Whether you're dealing with a client, as a practitioner or as a therapist, or whether we're talking about the way we deal with the situation that occurred on Capitol Hill.
Right.
And yet, so there's condemnation.
Or the situation that took place in all of the protests earlier in 2020, the Black Lives Matter protests.
What is it about that you're pointing to specifically?
Well, many of the different participants in the Capitol Hill demonstrations said that they were in retaliation of the Black Lives Matter protests. A lot of people drew awareness that the Black Lives Matter demonstrations were handled really differently by law enforcement. There's video footage of police officers literally opening the gates on Capitol Hill for the Trump supporting protesters to come through there. So people are drawing much larger parallels to what's happening in society. But from a spiritual perspective, from a metaphysical perspective, the idea really is, well, there's fractures in collective consciousness. There's something to be learned. There's something that still needs to be healed. There's a purge that still needs to take place collectively. There's something that has to be processed through. And it's unfortunately not as cut and dry as we would like it to be. We love when things are cut and dry, because then we can snip, move on. We love that. But it's really not that way, And but the idea is that it's one side doesn't have a corner on truth. So and it's not even really two sides. It's so much more diverse than two sides, really, So I think that there's something really coming in around the possibility of nuanced thinking, multidimensional thinking, and tuning into individuality, hyper individuality, realizing that there are going to be things that you and I really do the same, and there are going to be things that we do differently that both work differently for each of us, and so we sort of want to start to think about society that way, and some of these social issues that way, instead of saying, well, I'm registered this political party, so they've decided my opinion for me, and it's really hard, especially when you're watching news, because there's so many ideas inside all of the things that are being transmitted through the news and through TV and everything. There's so much in there that it's hard to not immediately pick a side. It's hard to not have a trigger reaction and say ooh, I'm with that person. I'm on this team versus that team, But really, when we start to think about every person as one thought in the mind of God, and all things happening concurrently, we start to find a more holistic, larger perspective. Let's see. Lots of people are popping in. Thanks for input. Really good words over there, guys.
Rebecca had said victim mentality is up a little higher, and I don't know what exactly she's referring to, but I think there's something important here around around acknowledging some of the anger that people are
Mhm.
feeling on all
Mm.
sides. Like we have to acknowledge that. But righteous indignation, I think, there's, first of all, there's anger, and I can acknowledge that I have anger, or that somebody else has anger for different reasons,
Right.
right?
Or the anger may be reasonably justified in different circumstances.
And anger isn't necessarily bad, right?
Anger is not necessarily violence.
Correct. Now, from there's a step down psychologically to righteous indignation, which is this sort of recognition of injustice, right? And I want to read you a definition uh, from Aristotle. He says Aristotle considered righteous indignation as one of the virtues of the mean, meaning the middle. Righteous indignation is a mean between envy and spite. Righteous indignation is distressed at instances of undeserved good fortune. But he's really talking here about this sense of outrage or sense of injustice or morality, right? Indignation is aroused at something is unjust, and so there's a sense of being able to not allow things to go unchecked,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we have some agreements on what crimes are and what despotism is, and what, like, there's some, like, these things can't go unchecked. And so we want to go from anger to righteous indignation to loving kindness, compassion, oneness.
Right.
But we can't go from anger to oneness.
Right. And it's like anger I see like as like this raw fire and this raw like burning wildfire that needs to be like put into a furnace. It needs to be transferred into a furnace and then like held isolated, insulated, funneled by loving kindness, by that. I think the heat and the passion of the anger is harnessed by righteous indignation, and I think it's applied through loving kindness and compassion, because that fire is just raw energy, and it can burn down a house or it can heat the house.
So, I'm sorry.
Keep going.
Well, I was interested in, a great example, and you're you're so deeply rooted in the Bible, as well as metaphysics. So what about I think a great example of righteous indignation is Jesus at the temple,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
The money changers.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the best examples, because he's the God of love, right? Jesus is the God of love. He's the miracle worker. He hangs out with very unpopular people, and is really kind to them, known for his kindness, kind words. And then in this moment where a sacred place was being violated, he was outraged. And he literally, this God of love, this like miracle worker, knocked over the tables. And they say he literally grabbed a whip and started to whip people until they left, until all those people. And it's like, the thing is, the thing is, like, if you get caught up in like he should have done this and shouldn't have done that, you're like missing the whole point of the narrative. Okay, these are mythological archetypal narratives that we're navigating. So there's an archetypal story in there. It means that love sometimes puts up a fight. A mama bear sometimes needs to protect the baby bear with fierce energy, and it's not rudeness, it's not unkindness, it's not anything negative. It's protection, and it's love, and it's something that's related to the divine feminine. We find that anyone who's experienced ayahuasca, not anyone, but many people who've experienced ayahuasca have also experienced the power and the strength of that divine feminine energy. Feminine energy is not always soft and cuddly and pink and roses, even though it's that too. The ayahuasca feminine energy will we'll flip the table of the money changers. And that's what I think is interesting about the Jesus archetype, is that he's symbolized by the rose. He's symbolized by the heart. They literally called him the God of love, you know? And so the notion is that there's this feminine energy within him. And the divine feminine and divine masculine are inextricably linked, with different ways of navigating and expressing themselves. We have different sides to ourselves. We have different sides to our personalities. Your lover is going to experience a different side of you than your coworker, more often than not.
You know, and this, to answer a question back there, who says we can't go from anger to compassion? And I think one of the spiritual principles and metaphysical principles and Buddhist principle is that we don't want to reject anything, that there's not one part of us that isn't worthy of love and acceptance. And so if there's a part of me that's angry, pushing it away or rejecting it in order to get to loving kindness is actually undermining that intention of oneness and loving kindness and compassion, because it's just going to, come back up. It's like trying to push mud down in a bucket of water. It just keeps coming up. You've got to be with it and allow that to settle, and clarity will emerge. And so when I said you can't go from anger to loving kindness, it's that recognition that we have to allow that anger to integrate and to not push it away, but to love it, to harmonize with it, and soon we begin to see that we're in a world of opposites, that what we thought was good is bad, and what we thought was bad was good. When we think we'll get there, we actually realize there was here and here is there.
Right.
We're in a world where
the biggest thing, especially some of the things I'm seeing in the comments, the biggest thing to really realize is you don't already know all the answers. None of us do. There's never going to be a time when you know all the answers. More often than not, the moment has things for you to learn. More often than not, the moment is not a time for us to teach or to transmit. More often than not, the present moment is to receive and to learn and to understand and grow. When it comes to a moment where there's genuine injustice taking place, you got to intervene. You got to participate, and that's between you and your soul. You've got to participate, and your soul is going to communicate to you. And for some people, they're frozen. And part of what their journey is going to be learning in another way, and the Kabbalistic tradition says that there are two ways to learn: one through pain and one through joy. And the path of pain is automatic. It's the reactive, natural, automatic path. It's not even really a path. It's there no matter what. And then the other path is the path of joy, which is the path of study. It's the path of humility. It's recognizing that actually, no, you don't have all of the answers, and you couldn't possibly have all of the answers, especially when you think you do. You do not. It's the open mind. It's the beginner's mind. It's the receptive mind. It's the recognition that mind is inherently incapable of holding all things at once. That is the purpose of going deeper into spiritual practice. That's the purpose of plant medicine, to realize that there is this part of you that thinks it knows everything, and it's preventing you from all of the things that you need and want in your life.
Ben, you always amaze me, brother. Wise beyond your years. You bring such beautiful insight.
Are you going to be at Rhythmia when I go there on March 7th?
Yeah.
Yay!
Hey, everybody, do you know Ben Decker's coming to Rhythmia March 7th? Just saying. Yeah, that's a very exciting thing to talk about, your trip there that's coming up. And I want to tell Ben, do you know about did I get to tell you about our COVID protocols?
Yeah, let's talk about those. Yeah, I wanted to ask about that.
So
first of all, March 7th is when I'm going to be there. Art of healing is the emphasis. I've been to Rhythmia 100 million times, and every time I learn so much, and I have journals and journals of my Rhythmia transmissions. It's such a magical place. If you haven't been there, it would be such an honor for me to be a part of your journey there. And everything that I'm teaching and presenting is built around the Rhythmia Way program and built to enhance the whole experience there. So I would love to sort of just be there with you guys and give you lots and lots of extra attention. So March 7th, super excited for everyone to be there.
It is a powerful week at Rhythmia, and Ben amplifies that consciousness so beautifully. Our biggest key performance indicator is the miracle rate, and the miracle rate is always through the roof when Ben's there. That's the truth, and it's really beautiful. And a lot of people are, there's a lot going on in the world around travel, and so I want to share with you that when Ben's there, we've been open since November 7th, and we have probably the most amazing COVID protocol of any resort I've ever heard of. We actually test everybody before they get on property, like a COVID test. We sourced a highly accurate antigen test, not an antibody, but an antigen test that is a rapid test. We sourced out of Switzerland. It was certified by the EU. Their kind of equivalent of the FDA. And then recently it was also certified by the FDA just recently, but back in October it was certified by the CU, the EU's FDA. And it is 100% accurate on negatives, 98% accurate on positives. So there's a 2% chance of a false positive. So you come, planes are super safe right now. It's the airport getting to and from, so you got to be careful and wear your PPE while traveling. And then you get to Rhythmia, we pick you up at the airport, you wear your mask, get temperature checked before you get on the bus. You get to Rhythmia, we test you before you even start the check-in process. Once you're tested, you're cleared. And the Rhythmia is a bubble. We've made it a limited access campus, so that once you are there, you can't leave for that week, which actually isn't a bad thing.
I never leave anyway.
It's so busy, right? You're booked. Ceremony, processing, breath work, colonics, mud baths, yoga, meditation, massages, eating organic food, being at the pool, going to the.
Did you say colonics yet? Colonics.
Did I say colonics? Colonics.
No.
So all of that's going on, and it's really an all-inclusive week. So there's not a lot of need to go, but you can definitely. Costa Rica is such a beautiful place. People can do a day or two before or a day or two after and get in zip lining and the horseback riding and water bike and all that. But while you're there, it's pre-COVID. It is. I had a lady say to me when I was there back in December. She said, I was really mad at you. I saw you on a Facebook Live and you said it's like pre-COVID. And I thought how irresponsible. And she was really angry and she was going to my husband and I still came, but I was going to come give you a piece of my mind when I got there. And then she got there and she's like, wow, I really see what you're talking about. It is a safe place. And people have come up to me and said, this is the first time I've hugged somebody in months, So Ben's there. All the protocols are there. Everything is safe. Temperature check guests twice a day. Staff are all tested and then temperature checked 3 times a day. We have a full clinic. We have doctors and nurses and everything there already. So it's super safe and a great way to enjoy fellowship and spiritual growth and expansion in a safe place where you're physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally safe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm super happy to hear about all those COVID protocols because, people are concerned and I'm so happy. I knew that you guys would have it all figured out because you guys keep it all. Actually, I was with you at Rhythmia when you closed.
That's right. Yeah, it was a week. Oh my God, that was a week.
I was there. Oh, it was
in March. It was March of last year, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. March 15th. The Ides of March.
Yeah, the Ides of March. Yep, that was such a bummer. I was so sad, and I'm just so beyond excited to be going back, and and it's going to be incredible. I'm so happy that you guys are taking such good care to make sure everything's good to go for COVID, because this is one of the things that we really need in the world. I think these kinds of plant medicine ceremonies, people coming together, doing deep healing, strengthening, increasing their resilience. Before going back into the world.
I had this great image. I don't know if I shared it with you, but I did a couple of days, like 3 or 4 days in the silence, working up to New Year's Eve, and I spent New Year's Eve in silence, and it was really profound. I do that 3 or 4 times a year, just on my own, because of this, just what you said, right? We have this sort of our spiritual practice in these retreats, right? When we retreat, it bolsters the internal pressure. Almost, I think of it like a submarine, right? You go down into the ocean, and the deeper you go, the more the external pressure is, and you've got to pressurize your vessel. And so retreat helped me pressurize my internal pressure to withstand the external forces. And then my daily practice keeps that maintaining, but then eventually it gets to a point where it's like, oh, I'm feeling like I need that retreat again. So that you're so right about what happens during the course of the retreat. Tell me about your title again and what you're teaching.
It's The Art of Healing is the name of the week, or the name, the theme, or whatever. And it's actually the subtitle to my book, Modern Spirituality, A Guide to the Heart of Mindfulness, Meditation, and the Art of Healing. There it is. And the reason the emphasis is on it being an art, healing being an art, is disengaging from the notion of linear process, opening ourselves up to, just like art. Remember art class, your painting looked different. Even if the assignment was the same, everyone's art looked different, and that's okay. It's good, in fact, that it's different and unique and highly individualized. And so the same is, of course, true about the healing journey. And so we'll be emphasizing the uniqueness of our individual paths. We'll be looking at our different circumstances in our lives as art. Films are art, books are art. You start to see yourself as the central character in your own life myth, in the epic myth of the incarnation of your own reality, so that you can just sort of get a better feel for the different themes, spiritual themes that your incarnation is processing through, and pairing it with the Rhythmia Way program, with the plant medicine, and just taking it all really, really deep, maximizing the experience of the week, and going home with some new meditation tools, especially centered around the integration of the medicine.
So great, so great. I love the reference to the hero's journey, right? Our own mythic journey of exploration, and this is so divine. It really is so divine that your topic and the subtitle of your book matches just what is so needed right now, right? So healing, I'd love to know about. I don't but I really feel this call to find out about your personal healing and your process of germination and what brought you. You have a tremendous story, man. I don't know whatever part of it you want to tell, but I think that so many of us are on this path, and it's never just one awakening. It's like many along the way. So I know you could stop at any one of those nodes and move on from there. But the real question is this becoming, that
right.
this dying to our little self and opening up to where life is leading us, where spirit is leading us. And I think your life is a testament to that. Will you share a little bit about your process of becoming and how you got here from there?
Yeah, I think that, I had a number of different things that led me to the desire for healing and seeking healing. And so, of course, you begin wherever you are. I began with my family's tradition, spirituality, religion. I started to seek what was nearby. And the more I learned about different techniques and modalities, the more I really realized that it wasn't in knowing someone else's technique that I received healing. It was in really trying to deepen my own connection to what that person was going for when they created that technique. Certain techniques you can really practice, like different meditation techniques. You do this, then this, then this, and it unfolds. And so for me, what I started to find is I went through all these different modalities, and healing started to come through, but then I had to deal with the next layer. They say new levels, new devils, right? So I started to get better in some ways, but then I started to have to face bigger and bigger demons in different ways. And when you're there in the arena, your training and your Bible can't show up and rescue you. It's your real metaphysical connection to those teachings. It's the resilience and the strength and the flexibility that you've built through your yoga or prayer or meditation practice that shows up. And the real magic happens in the present moment, you know? And so for me, the journey overall has been really about getting to know the fact that I'm a living incarnation, that there's divinity inside of me, that there's living consciousness inside me, and that even though my mind and my body have all these different carnal desires, there are higher desires that I am connected to, that are true for me, that are within me, that have the ability to integrate into my physical mechanism. And so the idea is just experimenting and navigating and working with all the different things. So for me, I had a really hard time being raised in a very, very religious household, being an LGBTQ person in a super conservative, dare I say, homophobic environment, and really finding my way through. I want to say really through some combination of biblical teachings, the Bhagavad Gita, the yogic teachings, and indigenous practices. So what has been so powerful for me over the years was really getting back into nature. And I feel like ayahuasca specifically has gotten me back to my own nature, deeper into nature than many other things. And then just keeping up that daily practice so that I can be functional in the outside world, so that I can operate in a sane way, so that I can be supportive and helpful in practical, real, meaningful ways in the world around me, and not just like float off into the cosmos, into nirvana or whatever. Let's see. So let's see. Yeah, I was raised. My family's a pioneer family of the Mormon Church, so direct descendant of sort of a very serious practice, very serious religious tradition, with a strong emphasis on ceremonial ordinance. So temple ceremony. I was performing temple ceremonies since I was 12 years old, performing baptisms for my ancestors. So we literally did these rituals where one ancestor at a time, we would say their name and perform a ceremony for them in the afterlife to experience a baptismal purification. And so I started to really, from a young age, and I was raised in a home and in a family and in a community that put a strong emphasis on eternity, a strong emphasis on the afterlife, and so I had a really strong metaphysical basis because of that. But the problem was that I was not really accepted for what I really was. There was a lot of people there who were LGBTQ who lived in the closet. I was never good at that. Yeah, Shelley, that's what they call it, baptism for the dead. Yeah, I was never that good at being in the closet. I've always been a little too flirty for my own good. If you look at my astrological chart, there's a lot of Scorpio, there's a lot of Libra, it's a lot of flirting. And so, I just had a hard time being myself at all in that community,
Yeah.
My flirty side.
I was going to say, I know your flirty side, man.
Yeah. So the journey was really interesting because it was a journey of unlearning certain things and then relearning things I had already known, because so much of what I had been taught was good and beautiful and true, but the rejection I experienced caused me to reject anything associated with it. So it took a long time for me to redevelop a relationship with anything Christian. And in fact, it was ayahuasca that did it. In my book, Modern Spirituality, I describe an ayahuasca ceremony where Jesus came to me.
So let's talk about your books, right?
Okay.
Like, because that's the fruition of this journey of becoming and of loving and accepting yourself more and more for who you are. Mm-hmm. And anchoring yourself in the world and not of it, not floating away to nirvana and all of those. So tell us, your latest book is Modern Spirituality,
right?
And right before that, you did Meditations on Christ,
right?
And both are just beautiful guides. Tell us a little bit about modern spirituality and what was the genesis of that and what your intention is around.
Well, modern spirituality is based on 7 core principles that all major world spiritual traditions agree on, and so it's right there in the introduction of that book. There are and the idea was it was born from a study of all the different traditions, what they believed, so that I could specifically find what they agreed on. And what I found were these 7 general core principles, and each one is very kind of elaborate. So we'd have to talk about it, but it's in the introduction. And if you wanted, I'd be happy. Anyone who ever DMs me on anything, I can give you the PDF to these books for free. Would be happy to just have my Rhythmia people have access to all of them. And the idea really from modern spirituality is that there's a new way of operating spiritually. We're spiritual but not religious in the same way that we used to be as a species. And modern spirituality is not about renouncing our old religions. It's about metaphysically reconciling with them, seeing what was true, and having that intuition, that discernment, that connection to the truth that allows the things that are not true, that allows the things that are dysfunctional to fade away, so that we can emphasize and embolden and empower the things that are true and that are useful and that are good.
That just resonates so much with what we were talking about earlier, our current political climate. Like, what a great thing. There's so much more that we all have in common than the differences, and what is true, right? What's true about each of us. That is the truth of our commonality, our unity, our oneness. And so what a beautiful testament to the intuitive guidance of spirit that the book is out, and it's perfect not only for what's going on in the metaphysical, spiritual, religious world, but what's going on in the political world. So I highly, Ben's books are so accessible. They're accessible at the extent of the reader entry points, right? From a highly practiced individual to a beginner can enter any one of these texts and find such richness. And so they're all available on Amazon.
Yep. And I will say that all of them are for your experience. They're to facilitate your own spiritual experience, particularly modern spirituality. They are, these are not, there are different vignettes and stories to illustrate ideas, but these are not memoirs. These are tools from all over the world that are designed to facilitate any individual's spiritual advancement, spiritual development, no matter where they are, like you were saying.
I can't wait for the memoir to come out, though, because that's got to be juicy. This is where the time has flown. We're here beyond the normal time, but it's just so beautiful to talk to you. I love you so much, and I'm so grateful Spirit has brought us together in this way. So I have one last question for you. And I always ask this question, which is, if you were in my shoes, what's the question that you would have asked that I didn't ask?
Oh, what a good one. Okay, if I was in your shoes, I would have asked if I was single.
Oh, Ben.
Just kidding. No, I'm single. I am single. I don't know what I would have asked. I think that I think you asked really good questions, and
yeah, we're both single, by the way. Just saying. Love for sale, appetizing. Okay, sorry. I did want to also be a torch singer in a previous life.
Me too.
There's another thing we have in common. Is there anything that you'd like to share, anything that's really burning in your heart that you'd like to share, or anything that you'd like us to know before we go?
I think that the thing that I'm learning that might be helpful for everyone is Even though I'm successful, and even though I'm smart, and even though I learned a lot of different things, there's still so much more to learn. And I want to encourage everyone to keep learning and to maintain an open mind, so that you've got the ability to learn more. I I have these books, and for me, these are things that I go back and study because they're the best of what I've been able to organize into practical guides. So they're helpful for me. They're things that are helpful in my own life. And so even though I have a publisher that hates that I do this, anyone who DMs me on anything asking for one of the books, I will give you the PDF for all 4 of them for free. So that's the one thing I will say. If anyone's interested in any of them, DM me, and I on any of my things, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, DM me and I'll share them all.
Beautiful. Benjamin W. Decker, amazing being of light and love and joy and flirt. Thank you so much for the generosity of your time and for who you are in the world. It's a great pleasure, my brother, to walk this path with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
And thank you all for joining us. Many blessings to everyone. And we'll be back. Jerry's got his Facebook Live tomorrow at, I think, 8 o'clock in the morning on 8 Pacific time. And I'm doing Walking the Path on Thursday. So check it out. Love you all. Come to Rhythmia, March 7th for Ben Decker, or just come. We love you and appreciate you. Many blessings. Talk to you later.